welcome back to Life in Sport podcast. And I'm joined by a very awesome guest. I usually say very special guest, but this time it's awesome because I'm a Leeds United tragic family from Leeds. I'm British with an Aussie accent, as my family likes to say. It's Dylan Kerr, former Leeds United player, very proud Maltese man. Thank you very much for joining me, Dylan. And how's your morning been so far?
Well, I woke up this morning. I got hold of my friend whose whose mother passed away yesterday, so it's been a bit of emotional. She was a really, really. I knew her daughter very, very well, and I think with her only having a daughter, I was kind of a adopted son. I
Yep,
think she
yep.
loved me more than the daughter. So
Okay, I get you.
it was a sad message I got last night, and finally I got in touch with her this morning.
Yep,
And yeah, it's just. But apart from that, yeah, it's a frosty, cold morning here in Mexborough in South Yorkshire, and but yeah, I'm
yep.
looking forward to having a chat with you.
Oh, good stuff. Good to know that you're still in Yorkshire these days, which is kind of where your career sort of took off at the start. But obviously, my first question for you is what is your earliest memory of football in general?
I was 5 years old. My dad took
Hmm.
me to the local working men's club team that he played in. With some, they were all my heroes back in the day, and being mascot in the community. Well, it was called the Community Shield of South Yorkshire.
Yep.
Being mascot, getting dressed in the pub kit, actually buried me, but it was. And I think that's when I got the bug to become what I wanted to do is achieve my ultimate dream and make the grade as a professional footballer. So
And
I
was the
think
goal always to play for Leeds United, or was it just play professional football regardless?
my dad is a mad Leeds United fan. I went to watch Leeds up until I was about 11.
Yep.
My dad used to take me. He used to go and stand in the Stretford end. I used to stand in the left-hand corner, not in the main stand, from the tunnel
Yeah, yep,
down the
yep.
left-hand. My dad used to stick me there with all these old men that were used to, and he used to go into the old famous Gelder end. And one of my memories I always remember is when Billy Bremner came over to take a corner. I had the
Yep.
ball. He came into the thing and obviously they gave me the ball and I threw it and I had ginger hair. Billy Bremner had ginger hair. And all right, wee man, great hair.
Oh, I love that.
And then he took the corner, and I think Gordon McQueen jumped up, went bang, goal.
Yep.
So yeah, so little memories that you're always, and we'll come on to it later. But I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to play for Billy,
Yeah.
which was absolutely
That would have been
an
a
amazing.
pinch yourself moment. Yeah. So, which
Yeah.
speaking of, as that actually tangents perfectly into my next question, which is growing up, who was your football idol? Which I'm guessing was Billy, or was it a different player?
There were a few. I mean, there were
Hmm.
obviously George Best, Billy Bremner. I love Johnny Giles and Kevin Keegan, different Charlie George at Arsenal.
Yep.
they were all different. Billy Bonds, Mervyn Day. When he
Oh,
was at
Merv.
West
Yep.
Ham, when he was in the cup final when they won it against Fulham.
And
Um,
then he was at
you know,
Leeds all of a sudden when,
yeah,
when you were there as
yeah.
well.
So there were loads of childhood heroes. I think obviously my dad was a big football fan, so we used to watch football.
Yep.
Every Saturday night, every Sunday afternoon. We'd even watch Jack Charlton's training sessions in the morning,
Yep.
and they should be repeated, by the way, because that's classic TV.
It is.
They should.
It really is.
So you know, but yeah, I mean, Gordon McQueen, Joe Jordan, Steve Coppell, Gordon Hill. I thought they were two amazing wingers. Because I, I my next door neighbour was a big Man United fan, and I think it was I would
That's not good if
I
you're
think
Leeds.
I know, and I was 12 years old, so I would go to Barnsley. I then became a kind of all my mates were going to Barnsley. Some of them were going to Rotherham, some of them were
Yep.
going to Barnsley, and I became a Barnsley fan.
Okay.
Um, in my wee teen years, but it coordinated in if Leeds were away, Man United were at home. and because his son used to drive over the Pennines and take his dad,
Yeah.
I somehow managed to go with them.
Oh, cool.
So my younger days was the Leeds. My mid-teens were watching Barnsley and Man United. To go
Yep.
to Old Trafford, I
Oh,
think it was two quid a ticket. Me and the young lad, the dad used to sit in the seat. We used to stand.
yep.
But it was just to go to Old Trafford. I'm not a Man United fan. I'm a massive Leeds fan. I'm a massive Barnsley fan. But
You're a massive football fan, you could say.
football. I used to go and watch. And still today I go and watch lots of games. All over Britain.
That's
You know,
exactly
to
like I'm a Leeds United tragic, but I'll watch other games. Same with other sports. I definitely have a team that I'm a tragic of, but I'll watch every other game that week. That weekend sort of thing. But always the main focal point is Leeds United or the team I follow in the other sports. But absolutely, and you know what? That's great to hear that you, as you said, Leeds United grew up and then Barnsley and Man United, but not just in the sense of following them, but you'd go just to be able to say, oh, I've gone to Old Trafford, because those sort of stadiums and atmospheres have, a storied history and legacy. And that actually brings up my next question, believe it or not, which is obviously being born in Malta. Obviously, Malta has a very proud heritage and very, especially with the St. George's Cross and whatnot. At what age did you move from Malta over to England, or was it just, your parents were there for a year and then, you don't even remember Malta sort of thing, maybe?
I don't. I've just got memories of photos. I left when I was 18 months old. My dad was stationed in the Navy out
Okay.
there. Mum decided to fly over, and they got married out there, and they kind of they tried to build a different life.
Hmm.
But my dad, once he left the Merchant Navy, like typical Yorkshire parenting, he followed his dad's footsteps and went and worked down the pit.
Yep.
So we moved back to Mexborough. I think I was 18 months old, and I'm not Maltese. I've not got any Maltese ancestry. I've got two godparents that
Okay.
are I believe they're both alive
Okay.
still.
So it's
We
just
used to go.
the only thing that sort of makes you Maltese would be you were born there, sort of thing.
Yes,
Okay.
and we used to go back. We used to go to Malta every year up until about I think I was like 10.
Okay.
We go back every year. So yeah, so that's my link into Malta, being born there, and like I said my dad was in the Navy, so
Yep. No, that's fair.
I,
Um.
I did actually. There was an interest from the Maltese FA
Yeah.
in '91.
Yep.
Unfortunately, the German coach didn't like English players,
Oh,
which you
I mean,
you kind of of Leeds United. So you're thinking, well, hang on, you're in the top league, you've just won the league,
yep.
and even though I wasn't a regular, but I still had that, opportunity. But the coach just for whatever reason, his choice, he just didn't like British players.
Yeah, fair. I mean, and Malta's much more of a rugby union nation, from what I've been told,
Yeah,
anyway. So, it would have been, let's be honest, it would have been a bit haphazard, especially given it was a German coach that didn't like British players. But you could have been like, mate, I'm only British by I'm living here. I'm Maltese.
yeah,
But
yeah.
is it more he
Well, I
didn't
say,
like players from the British league?
yeah, he didn't like anybody. He
Uh,
didn't like British players. He didn't like British players.
gotcha.
So and it never materialised. There was a lot of hype for a couple of weeks in the Maltese press, and it just never happened. So, and unfortunately, no. Who knows? Who knows what might have happened
Yeah.
if it had? But it didn't. So, I just left it. I just moved on.
Yeah. That's fair. I mean, there's no point grinding on it. It's fun to think about, what could have been, but then there's no sense in going further than just that thought sort of thing. Next question though would be obviously your time at Leeds United. A great time in Leeds United's history. 89-90 promoted back to the top league, 91-92 winning the top league under Howard Wilkinson and Billy Bremner earlier on as well before that. First of all, what was it like having those two coaches and how did they differ?
Well, I started my career at Sheffield Wednesday in
You did, yes.
'84, and I could. This is, it's a story that you just can't. It's one of them. I was
Yeah.
never good enough to play for the best junior teams in my area. I was
Oh
always
wow.
considered. I was always considered, even though I was a goal scoring midfielder. I was
Yeah,
a
wow.
central mid, and I could score goals. And my school team, I used to play, obviously school football on a Wednesdays and Saturday mornings. We had I was at 16. I was playing under 19s on a Saturday afternoon, or I was playing for a local pub team or
Yep.
Swinton Athletic. And Sunday we play Sunday morning for one team, and then Sunday afternoon another team. And all my friends, all the best players, so-called best players, they were all in the better teams.
Yep.
Um,
But they
and
didn't make it to the top league, but you did.
yeah, and it's one of the there's two stories,
Yeah.
and I don't I don't want to, I want to cut it down short, but
No,
you
take as
know
long as you like.
one story was that one parent, it was called Mr. Ricks. His son was called Stephen Ricks, and I went to try and play for him. They're called Rockingham, this
Yep.
team, and I tried to play for them. I think I was about 15 or 14, 15.
Yep. As in to
And
get in their academy sort of thing.
no, it's just a Sunday football team.
Okay. Yep.
It's
Yep.
just. And he said to me one day, "You'll never play for this team because you're not good enough, and you never will be." And kind of, I've always had this thing, and
You end up playing for Rockingham at some point?
No, I didn't.
No?
I didn't play for. I played for a team called Mexborough Athletic, with all the other so-called players that weren't good enough. And we actually played them one day, and we actually battered them because it was one of them where we all wanted
That
to.
would have been so good for you.
And Howard Wilkinson, has always said, I'm like, I've got coils on my back because every time I get knocked down, I just bounce straight back up. And I didn't let that deter me because I thought, I'm going to prove you wrong. And a couple of years later, my dad was manager of Swinton Athletic. Again, it's just a Saturday non-league game. I think it would have been in the 20th league, in Yorkshire, not in England, in Yorkshire. And it was just fun to play on a Saturday. And I was going out with the boys to watch Barnsley versus, because it were them days where you were a hooligan, you thought you were hard, but you weren't really. You'd chase after them, and then when they chase, you'd run away. It was one of them like, I'm hard, but then you see all these grown men that's coming. And my dad phoned me up at home and said, "Look, I want you to play. I want you to come and play for me today." And I went, "I can't. I'm going to Barnsley." And he went, "No, I want you to come and play." And anyway, went and played for him. We won 4-0. I scored 3 goals.
3 of the 4. Jeez, that's a good feat.
I used to, I don't know why, I just used to, I was one of these players that could go box to box, and it got on the end of things. After the game, what we called the rub man, Wilf had brought a former Sheffield Wednesday scout to watch the game, and he pulled me over and said, "Listen, I like blah blah blah. I'm going to call Jack Charlton, and I'm going to see if you can come for a trial in pre."
Wow.
So I was like, yeah, I took it with a
There's
piece
a
of
stand
salt.
named after him at Ellen Road, and you're getting the call to possibly. Wow. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
I got a phone call from Maurice Setters, his assistant, and he invited me down for pre-season. Excited, got myself ready. I was very, very athletic. I used to do long distance. I used to do 1500. I was 1500 meter champion, 800 meter champion, cross country champion. I could run, and thought pre-season. If I have a good pre-season, who knows? A week before, Jack Charlton resigned, and he went to become the Republic of Ireland coach, manager. And Howard Wilkinson was brought in from Notts County. So I thought the chance had gone. Anyway, I phoned the club up. The club said, no, you're still invited. And I did pre-season at Sheffield Wednesday. And I think I know I got the contract because Howard Wilkinson loved to run. He loved to make his players fit. And I used to the senior professionals, the Mick Lyons, the Laurie Maddens, Imre Varadis, Mel Sterland,
Yep.
um,
Another Leeds legend.
another Leeds legend, Brian Marwood, Andy Blair, all these top players, top professionals, Martin Hodge was in goals. I used to leave them for dead. I used to once we used to run, once
You'd run circles around them.
the last couple of miles, the gaffer used to say, right, off you go.
Yep.
First one back to the car. And I would be standing there 10, 15 minutes before even the second person.
Yeah,
And
wow.
I got the contract, and I'm being honest here, I got the contract because of that.
Yep. Because of your fitness and your dedication to it, sort of thing.
Yeah, because he loved my attitude. He loved the idea that, I was so wanted this,
Yeah, the hard
so
work.
they offered me a 1 year YTS contract, which was
Wow.
government funded. It was 25 quid, 9 quid expenses.
Yep.
And I thought then, I'd made it. I thought I'd made it. I'd done. And when I signed that contract as an apprentice professional,
Yep.
First person I knocked on the door was Mr. Ricks.
Yeah.
And he answered the door, and all I did, I just give him a piece of paper that said Dylan Kerr, apprentice professional, Sheffield Wednesday Football Club. And I walked away. And
you didn't even wait for his reaction.
That's the last time I ever saw him. I never saw him again. I don't know what happened to his son.
Yep.
He didn't play. He didn't make the grade.
No, but you did.
Yeah. It was like a dream come
that.
true, and it happened. So so that's where it all started.
Yeah, wow.
It all went wrong. It all went. It at the end of my contract
at Sheffield Wednesday.
I think it was 6 weeks before I could either get a professional or get released.
Yeah.
And I knocked on the gaffer's door. I said, Gaffer, my contract's up. How have I been doing? And himself, Peter Eustace, and Mick Hennigan, who became Howard's assistant at Leeds, they sat me down, and Howard said, look, we're not going to offer you a contract as a midfielder.
Oh.
We think you'll be better at playing either left back or left midfield.
Okay.
And he said, I'm going to give you these 6 weeks to give you an opportunity to play at left back.
And see how you go, sort of thing.
My energy, because of my left foot, he said, that's my position. He says, and you've done ever so well, but I wouldn't sign you as a central midfield player.
Fair.
And for 6 weeks, I was in every morning doing my jobs. So I used to stay after training.
Yep.
I got advice from Mel Sterling because he was right back.
Yep.
I got advice from Nigel Worthington, and who was left back. And I just worked at my game for 6 weeks as a left back.
Yep.
End of the 6 weeks, knocked on the door again, and the gaffer had a contract waiting for me. He says,
"That's great.
I'm going to give you a 1 year professional contract, and you've earned it.
Yeah.
You've earned it.
You've done everything that you need to.
You've been doing, and you've deserved it." And I thought, dream come true. I'm a professional footballer. I'm a pro.
Yeah. Yeah. It no longer says apprentice, it says professional.
Professional football. My first professional contract, I was on £60 a week and £20 expenses.
That's a bit of an upgrade compared to £25 a week, £9 expenses, for sure.
So I bought my first car, which was a Fiat Strada, which back in the day was a nice little 2-seater. Get the Arbrath model because it was treble in insurance, and drive every day to training. And I'd done the year's apprenticeship, which is the hardest thing in football back in the day, to be an apprentice, because I used to leave home at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I used to get back at home at 6, 7 o'clock at night, and I did that 7 days a week. You never got a day off.
Yep.
Your job was to become, you were learning your trade.
Yep.
And although it was hard, it was so satisfying because you were doing stuff that made you into a better person.
Of course.
You identified things not only in yourself but in others around you that gave you a bit more than what you would expect. You know, if it have just been like today's apprentices, you
Yeah.
don't do anything, or they do very very minimal.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it was 1985 when I signed that pro contract, and I thought I'd done it, and
Yeah.
that's where it all went wrong. And a
And
year
how did it go
later,
wrong then? Oh, well, then tell us about a year later then. And when you were in your mind, you were the dog's bollocks. You were literally, I've just scored a professional contract, and then as you just said, about a year later, it all went wrong. How, why,
I'm a
where, when, etc.
I'm a professional player. I thought I was going to be a professional player for life.
Yeah.
You know, I thought once you'd got your apprenticeship was the hardest thing.
Yep.
But it wasn't. You know, the hardest thing was maintaining standards,
Yeah.
right? And I became this professional footballer, not made a league appearance. I was captain of the reserves at 17 years old,
Wow.
and with some big players in the reserves. Um, the same when I was at Leeds United, you know, and I just couldn't get in the team. You know, the day that I think Nigel Worthington got injured, we were playing Liverpool, and
Hmm.
everybody was on my side. Oh, this is your chance. This is your chance. And I prepared, and then on the Thursday, Howard signed John Ryan from Newcastle.
Yep.
So I didn't get to make my debut at Anfield, and in fact, I never made an appearance at Sheffield Wednesday. There
Yep.
were only one sub on the bench at the time, not nine substitutes.
Yep.
Um, but I was very very respected within the group of players,
That's good then.
and I love my music. I love my 80s music, and I got to meet Evan 17 and got to meet the Human League and ABC and Dead or Alive. All the I was and I was doing things that no normal 17-year-old were doing.
Yeah. You're literally living
And
your dreams.
I was just living life. I was going out with the pros. I was hanging around with many many celebrities, and when my contract came to an end, my year's pro contract came to an end.
Hmm.
I would obviously do all about my off the field activities, even though it
Antics. Yeah.
never affected my training, never affected my game. And he said, "Look, we know, what you've been doing off the field. It's not something we try and promote in our youth policy."
Hmm.
We had another player called Wayne Jacobs who went on to play for Bradford and Hull City. I think he played for Hull. He was coming through the junior ranks, and they said, "Look, we feel that we can't offer you an extension."
Oh,
And kind of my whole world came crashing down in a 5-minute period,
yeah.
of
Wow.
them words. And he was right. He was right. I did do things that like I said, no 17-year-old professional player would do.
Hmm.
Um, but in my head, I thought I would never going to be out of professional football ever again.
Yeah. Okay.
And
And you'll do whatever it
that
takes to stay there, sort of thing.
yeah, that day I got released. It was the worst day of my life, and I wrote to 91 league clubs. I wrote to all the clubs in the Northern Premier League,
Yep.
which was called at the time, like Spennymoor were in there, Matlock Town, Gainsborough Trinity, Gould Town, the Worksop Town, all these teams. And I think I got 7 replies for trials. And I went on trials from pre-season up until I think November, and I
Hmm.
wasn't offered anything from any club. It's very lucky an apprentice or a first year pro who gets released from a football club would get another club.
Yep.
I went to Birmingham City, and Ron Saunders said, "I've done absolutely fantastic, but I've got a player called Julian Dix," and he said,
Wow.
we're going to, because he's a local lad as well. They were going to sign him,
Yep.
and wish me all the best. I went to play for Matlock Town
Yep.
for, for a couple of games, and yeah, nothing else was happening. I thought that was it. My career was done.
And then Leeds
So
come knocking, wasn't it? Or was it someone else
no, no.
before that? It was someone before
What
that, wasn't it?
Yeah, what happened then is that Mick Hennigan was at he used to be at Spalding, and then
Yep.
Howard took him to Sheffield Wednesday, and he was my youth coach. And again, because of he liked my attitude, he liked my character, he liked my work ethic.
Yep.
I've always, admired Mick and Howard's principles of the game and how they manage players.
Hmm.
And I get a phone call. I got a phone call just at the beginning of January, and he asked me if I'd like to go to South Africa because he played there in the 70s,
Yep.
and one of his best friends, he was best man for one of the players. They were looking for a left-sided player,
Hmm.
and
And well, you
I'd
played
obviously,
left back.
yeah, and I'd got nothing else. I got nothing else, and I said to my mum and dad, I've been offered this contract. It was, I can't even remember. I think it was £120 a month.
Yep.
You've got a house, you've got a car.
It's in South Africa. Did they
Yeah,
say it's where? You what?
yeah,
When you said South
exactly.
Africa?
And I'm on the phone and I said to Mick, I says, can I have a couple of weeks to think about it? And they went, no, you've got to fly. They want you to fly out on Friday.
Yeah.
So I got 5 days to get and my mum and dad were like, you know, I my dad had been offered a great job in Zimbabwe when I was
Yep.
14. And because I wanted to be a footballer, I wouldn't go. He'd been
Yep.
offered a great job. I mean, the house we were offered was unbelievable.
Yep.
And we didn't go because I didn't want to go, and my dad went, no, now you want to go to Africa. And I said, look, it's the only opportunity I've got. I've got nothing
Yeah.
else. What do I follow your footsteps and go down the pit? Because I didn't have any options. Nobody wanted to sign me. I'd
Mm.
done all my trials. I'd been to Rotherham. I'd been to Doncaster. I'd been to Barnsley. I signed for Doncaster for 6 months as a non-contract, and one of my former
Like a
teammates,
train and trial sort of thing.
yeah, and then this tall, skinny black kid came to training one day, and the gaffer said to me, look after him. He's just new to the club, and it was Brian Dean, of all people,
All these
and
names.
yeah, Brian Dean, Mark Rankin, and Rufus Breivik. We all became like a little foursome where we just hang around because it was just one of them things that we all got on together. And anyway, that day, and I always remember there was an incident on. It was news at 10, and
Mm.
we were sat watching it, and there were an incident in South African football where
Mm.
the league decided to split. It used to be the NPSL, it was becoming the NSL. And one of the chairmen, I think he was of Orlando Pirates, was stabbed 87 times on the football field, by the crowd, because he was the
By the
instigator.
crowd.
And we're watching this, and my mum and dad saying, "There's no way you're going there."
I don't
He
blame them.
didn't die. He was so big. It was such a size that none of the knife wounds,
Stabs went to his organs.
did anything serious. But anyway, he survived, and my mum and dad said, "No, you're not going. You're not going." And
I don't blame him.
2 days later, I said, "No, I'm going. I'm gone." So I flew over, and I had 3 amazing years in South Africa. But every Christmas, I'd come home.
Yep.
And 2 Christmases, 87 and 88,
Yep.
I would come over. No, it was 86, 87. I'd come home and I'd phone Howard Wilkinson and say, "Gaffer, can I come and train with you? Just to keep myself fit."
Yep.
And I went back to Sheffield Wednesdays, trained with the guys. And then the last year, I was supposed to sign for one of the biggest clubs in South Africa, which is a team called Kaizer Chiefs.
Yep. Lucas Radaby's junior club.
Yeah, and the band Kaizer Chiefs took the name off that.
That's why they're named after. Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Great song and great Leeds fans.
I came home. I came home again, and I phoned Howard. I says, Gaffer, can I come and train? He says, yeah, come. And I trained for 3 weeks. Glyn Snodding was there. They'd signed Mickey Whitlow and Neil Parsley from I can't remember, some team up in the north in Manchester.
They'd signed Vinnie Jones.
They signed them, and the gaffer
and
said,
Mel,
look,
I think.
I think they signed Mel a year later because remember Rangers.
That's right, he was, yes. Yep.
And I came back, and I travelled up with Ian Baird, John Pearson, Andy Williams, and Carl Shutt. We all had a car. We went. We drove up.
Yep.
Glyn Snodding, I think, was injured, so Mickey Whitlow made his debut, and they didn't have anybody to play left back for the reserves. Yep. So I played, a couple of reserve games. No idea what was going to happen. I was just there to keep fit. So I was going back. I'd already agreed to sign for Kaiser Chiefs.
Yeah. Yep.
And I was due to fly back on the Monday, and I said to Howard and Mick, thanks very much, absolutely brilliant. How have I done? He says, listen, you've gone away, you've come back, you've become a better player, a better person. You've still got the same attitude, you've still got the same ability. The same work ethic, ability now as a player. You could play left back, you can play left midfield. You could play in central midfield. He says, and we wish you all the best, and go back to South Africa because you've got a good reputation. You're well known out there. Go back there. And I went, thank you. I got my boots. I said my goodbyes to all the players. I said, and because that's all I've been at. I just went there to train.
Yep.
And
to keep match fit in the off season. Yeah.
Just keep myself fit because in South Africa, their season went from January to November.
Yeah.
So
because that's their calendar.
Yeah.
Like season
that was their time. So anyway, on the Friday morning, I get a phone call from Frickley Athletic, and they were going to give me 50 quid to play against Droylsden, and it's only half an hour away from where I live, and I said, yeah, no problem. So went to Frickley. We played the game. We won 4-2. I scored 2 goals. And I get a phone call from Mick Hennigan. There was a paper that came out in Yorkshire. It was called the Greenham.
Yep.
And it came out at 6 o'clock on a Saturday night. So every man, dog and football lover bought this paper on a Saturday because it had all the local leagues. It had all the results. It had all the team information that no other area had.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call on Sunday morning, and Mick Hennigan's on the phone. He says, "What are you fucking doing?" And I went, "What do you mean?" He says, "You could have got injured." I said, "Well, might have happened." But he said, "No, you could have got injured, and it could have affected, you signing a contract at Leeds United." And I went, "What do you mean?"
Like, says, I'm not signed. I haven't heard anything.
I spoke to Howard last night after reading the article in the Greenham.
Yep.
And I told him to give you a contract. I said to him, I said, look, we've got to sign Dylan.
Yep.
And I was just like, "You're kidding me?" And he went, "No." He says, "We want to see you tomorrow morning."
Oh, wow.
So I drove up, I went to the Red Lion pub in Thorpe Hesley where I met all the guys. I'd already said my goodbye.
And then you're like, hello again.
At 9 o'clock that morning, I'm in the car park waiting because I didn't have a car. I was in the car park waiting.
Because you were still just visiting England at this point.
Yeah. And they asked me what I was doing. I said, well, the gaffers called me back in. And they went, we knew it. We knew you'd sign. And I went, well, I don't know. Anyway, I got to Ellen Road, went in to see the gaffer, and the gaffer just said, listen, we've changed his mind. We want you not to go back to South Africa. We want to sign you for 18 months. And I had to go home, phone South Africa. I spoke to Kaiser Matong, the owner. I spoke to Mr. Solsax, the owner of Arcadia, where I was playing. And they said to me, "Yep, not a problem. You can go with our blessings."
Awesome.
So The next day, I signed an 18-month contract.
Yeah.
Came out of the blue. Came from nowhere.
And
Came from
under
nowhere.
your original Sheffield Wednesday coach, Howard Wilkinson. Now, I do have a question because I've just actually recently rewatched the 89-90 documentary series that they made in the early 2000s for Leeds United. And there was talk that Howard genuinely separated the locker room in the sense of between players who were first players and players who were reserve grade players. Is that true? If I've got to ask that, is that true?
Yeah, yeah. We
Because
had
people said it was controversial, but you know what? Sorry to interrupt. From an onlooker, from an outsider looking in and rewatching it, that would galvanize players to want to be better, to be them. It's us and them, and it would make the people who are us want to be them, sort of thing, right?
1,000,000%.
Okay.
1,000,000. And
Yeah.
you're talking of big players as well.
Yeah.
You're talking, you're not talking
You're talking Gordon
just,
Strachan, sort of
you
thing.
know, you're not talking about. You're talking, obviously, a new manager comes in and players have to leave.
Adjust
You know,
and leave. Yeah.
John Bidden, John Styles, Noel Blake, Vince Hilaire, Mark Hazelwood, Bobby Davison, Ian Baird,
Dylan Kerr,
Mick Whitlow, Neil Parsley, Simon Grayson,
Mel Sterling. It's like even though
no
he wasn't
Mel.
there that year, but I mean he was there later. Yeah.
But you had home dressing room and the away dressing room. First team players, big players were in the home dressing room. The rest, and obviously then, the players leave, players go.
Yeah.
Billy Bremner's players weren't Howard Wilkinson's players. Shez left, Beardy left, Mark Hazelwood, he had
Yeah.
to leave. He did
Yeah.
what he did that game. John Pearson, he stayed. Blakey left, Vince Lair left, Vinnie Brocky left, and Tommy Wright left. Who's the wee left winger? Went to Blackburn.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yep. Snodding left. A lot of good people left. Neil Aspin left.
Yep.
A lot of good people left. And yeah, you had that separation. But your motivation, as you said, was to gain that dressing room.
Yeah.
Gary Speed was with us. Gary Speed.
Yep.
And I always remember Gary Speed was. I think Howard was going to release him. And Pete Gumby, who was the youth team coach, told the gaffer, no, give him a contract. Give him a contract. And obviously,
thank you, Pete.
God rest his Speedo became an absolute legend. And, me and Speedo were trying for the same position. Me and Mickey Whitlow were trying for the same position. Jim Beglin arrived. It made it harder for me and made it harder for Mickey Whitlow. Then Tony DeRigo came. I love Tony
as an Aussie, absolute legend of Leeds.
I love Tony DeRigo to death, but I want to punch his face every time I see him because he never got bloody injured. He never got suspended. And when he did get injured, got injured for one game, and then I was in and I was out. It was frustrating.
Yeah.
It was really, really.
It was that battle of the backs. It really was.
Look, I knew my position. I knew what my role was at Ellen Road. I knew what I gave on and off the field at that club.
As a Leeds fan, I'd love to say, regardless of whether you played one game, 100 games, or 1,000 games, you'll always be a Leeds United player, regardless. Sorry, continue.
That's the thing. It's like a lot of people, a lot of people, Dylan, he only played such a,
That doesn't matter. Only, mate, that's 20 more than I'll ever play for Leeds United.
At that time, that dressing room of players is the reason they got promoted from League Two. That's the reason, or Division Two as it's called. They got into Division One. That's the reason that team won the Premier League.
But you're also part of that. Like that's the thing. Everyone who played even one game or was in the youth squad, all of them had a role to play. That it was just as pivotal as the legends such as Vinnie Jones or Gordon Strachan or whomever. Just as important as those 100-game players are those one-game players.
It's like I say, it's people from the outside, the genuine people that knew that caliber of player. I was Gordon Strachan. Nobody wanted Gordon Strachan. No Leeds fan wanted Gordon Strachan at the time.
Glad we got him though, in hindsight.
Yeah, but Gordon Strachan was as genuine and as honest and as real as Dylan Kerr was, as David Batty was, as Vinnie Jones were, as Lee Chapman were. And what Howard did it at Wednesdays. He brought in his players to get them out of Division 2 back into Division 1. He did it in the first year. He got them out of Division 1, Division 2 into Division 1, first year at Leeds. He then got the players that he knew he wanted at that football club to challenge for the title and won it.
Because he literally won it within 2 years. The second year, the first year back in the top league, finished 4th. The following year, won it. That's almost unheard of to do that, to go from Division 2 to top division and win it.
Yeah, he had to bring in the right characters for that Leeds United dressing room. And remember, Howard Wilkinson had this negative vibe from other coaches because he was long ball, he was route one, but it worked.
They would say, a boring style of football, but if
worked.
It ain't broke, don't fix it. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. It worked. And he got rid of Vinnie Jones and brought Gary McAllister in. Vinnie Jones had a great year.
He had an outstanding year.
Yep. He brought in Lee Chapman. He brought in Carl Schutt.
Yep.
He brought in Eric Cantona.
I've got to ask, what was he like as in the locker room? Because obviously the press made him out to be a bit of a prima donna. What was he like?
It was a genius.
Yeah.
But he didn't fit into the way that Leeds United played.
Okay.
And he was a character because if he spoke to you, if he wanted to speak to you, speak in English. If he didn't, he'd just speak to you in French or ignore you. And
okay.
His first game, he was in a reserve game at Blackburn. It was middle of July, middle of January. It was freezing. It was one of the coldest days I've ever played football in. And after about 15 minutes, we just saw this Frenchman walk across the pitch, down the tunnel, and never came back. He buggered off home.
Wow.
He just left. Mick Hennigan's like, God, we're open.
Can't do that.
Like,
yeah.
That's
an Ibrahimovic of these days sort of move. Yep. Another former teammate I've got to ask about, obviously would be remiss if I didn't ask about Vinnie Jones. Was he as animated as he seemed to be off the field, like as in training? Yeah.
It was brilliant. And once Gordon slapped him a few times and said, listen, stop being the Vinnie Jones of Wimbledon and be the Vinnie Jones that you can be.
At least.
And it changed his opinion of himself.
Yeah. He really changed into a footballer at Leeds, in my opinion.
He became a football player. He'll never lose that image that he got when he was at Wimbledon. He'd never get image of that picture with Gaza. Again, it's a character. It's a character in football.
Yeah.
Oh, right, hang on. You're going to have to bear with me 2 seconds. I'm just going to get my charge.
I'll pop it on pause. Yep, no worries. Yeah. I'll pop it on pause. Okay, so on the back of Howard Wilkinson and how he split the dressing room, but that also, as you said, 1,000,000% made the players who were in the away team, like second team sort of tier, wanting to break into the first team. Howard Wilkinson and Gordon Strachan in particular, after they won the top league or the top division, said we cannot forget the efforts of the players from the 89-90 Division 2 promotional team because, without them, we're not here today, sort of thing. And I guess my next question is, obviously being an Elland Road Leeds kid, growing up until about the age of 11 when you admittedly went to Barnsley and Man United and whatnot. What was it like getting the call from your Sheffield coach, Howard Wilkinson, from a few years, and then walking in and actually walking onto Elland Road and, donning the famous, the mighty whites and playing your first minutes of professional football for Leeds United in particular?
It was just, I never expected it because I've been to Sheffield Wednesday twice before training, and I just went home. And like I said, when I spoke to him, because I was due back in South Africa on the Monday, and I went and said, listen, thanks. And I said, there was no expectations. And when he said to me, listen, go back to South Africa because you've got a great reputation. We know what you're doing. There's been interest that you can, maybe go for the national team.
Hmm.
if you get a dual citizenship,
Yep.
and shook his hand and said, yeah,
Yep.
thank you, Gaffer, for everything. And to be told on a Sunday afternoon when Mick phoned me
Yeah.
that I could have got injured and ruined my chances of
You're like, well, what
So yeah,
chances?
it was
I
like
haven't read. Yeah.
it was. I didn't come back expecting. I wanted to come back and prove again a lot of people wrong,
That you could make it
and
again. Yep.
but I'd got a great life in South Africa. I had a house with a pool. I had a maid, that looked after us. I had a nice Audi Quattro car. And I was earning decent money and
Yep.
getting decent bonuses, and I had a
Getting
great
regular
reputation.
minutes.
And I was playing. I came second in Player of the Year in my first season in South Africa,
Nice.
and um, and to be offered a contract by Kaiser Chiefs, who's at the
That's no
time
easy feat.
playing were playing in front of 90,000 people every week,
Yeah.
every week. And I was a white guy playing in a
That's like
black team.
Ellen Road filled twice, three times over.
Yeah, and I was playing. I would have been, apart from Gary Bailey was the goalkeeper. I
Yep.
would have been the only second white player to play for Kaiser Chiefs at
Oh
that
wow.
time.
Yep.
And when the opportunity, like I say, I got the blessing from Kaiser, I got the blessing from my chairman and my manager that signed me from 3 years later.
Yep.
They said, yeah, and I signed. And again, I became, there were two, I think there were one substitute then that then became two.
Mm.
I was always like 14th man or 13th man. I remember Dave Batty, when I signed my contract, the first tackle that Dave Batty made on me nearly broke me in half. And I'm laid on the floor and he went, welcome to Leeds.
I was going to say, speaking of stories like that, sorry to interrupt. Mel Sterland on that 89-90 documentary said a game against, it was Sheffield United, because his twin brother was Sheffield United fan. And one of
Yeah,
his mates bet him a fiver that he wouldn't score against Sheffield United. And not only did he score, he then went to that corner post, did that little dance in the footage, as you'll
yeah.
see. First of all, do you remember that? And second of all, do you have any sort of stories similar to that about yourself when you were at Leeds?
Well, I made my debut against Brighton, and I wasn't
Wow.
in the squad. I wasn't in the
Okay.
squad.
How'd
I
this
was. I
come about
was.
then?
I wasn't even playing. I think Snodding got injured, or Snodding was sick
Yeah.
that day, and Mickey Whitlow made his debut as well, and I was on the bench.
Yeah.
I was his
So
cover.
not even expecting it to run.
I was out on a Friday night. I was absolutely. I'd had about 6 or 7 pints that Friday night because
Yeah.
I always went out on a Friday. If I weren't
Yeah.
playing on the Saturday,
May as
I'd be out
well.
with the lads. And as we walk from Swinton to Mexborough, there's a little bridge that you have to go over, and to walk to Mexborough, you went nightclubbing. So obviously, straight from pubs, closed at 11, straight to the nightclub. And I'm walking over this bridge, and I'm thinking, is that me drunk or is that my mother? And it was my mother on top of the bridge, and she said,
Get home.
Can you please go home now? Howard Wilkinson's going to phone you in 20 minutes." So
You're like, no, he's not, Mum.
it took me 20 minutes to run home. I said, "Mum, I'm going." She got in the taxi. I said, "Listen, I'm running home." So I ran home, and I got there 2 minutes before I got there, and I'm breathing out my bloody arse, as they say.
Stuck in the air.
I've sprinted. I've got my shoes on. I've sprinted home up hills. Took me 19 minutes to get there.
Yep. And he called in
And I
that
got there,
20th.
and then the gaffer said, "Oh, but you're on the bench tomorrow." And and I said, "Gaffer," I said, my mum's just called me. I've been at my grandma's, and I've just run over. I've just had to run over because I couldn't get a taxi. That's why and yeah, and that's when I made my debut. I think
Wow.
I set up the equaliser.
Yep.
So that's when I came off the bench and I set up the equaliser. And then my full debut was funny of all, was against Barnsley.
And what was that like again? Getting your full debut,
Because
starting.
all all my cousins and my uncles were all Barnsley fans. They were all pitmen, so they all supported Barnsley.
Were they at the game?
They were all at the game, yeah.
Did you get the win? Because I don't remember that game, as in, or haven't seen much footage of it either.
No, we drew 1-1, and again, I set up the equaliser. So.
What did the family and cousins have to say after that?
Oh no, they were just obviously they were over the moon just to see. Yeah. My families are all bywaters from my mother's side, so
yeah. But they'd be like, "That's my cousin."
Yeah, seeing a Kerr play, and again, I used to watch such greats as Ronnie Glavin, Trevor Aylott, Mick McCarthy, Ian Evans, Ian Banks. All these they were like, again, they were role models of heroes that you watched for Barnsley, and it was just to play against your team that like I said, I wasn't a fan. I just went as a fan. I was a fan of football.
You went as a fan of the game, not as a fan of the team.
But it was my local team. I could have gone to Rotherham, could have gone to Donny, could have gone to Sheffield Wednesday, but all my mates were going to Barnsley. So I ended up going to Barnsley. So and we won promotion that year. I'd only made a handful of appearances. The next year, they counted. And then when they won the championship, which is now the Premier League, I never made one appearance. Again, I was always that 14th man, but I was there. I was with it. I was part of it. And there's other players. Simon Grayson didn't make any appearances. Neil Parsi never made any appearances. Gary Kelly came. Then Kevin Sharp came. Jamie Forrester. All these young players. Mark Tinkler came. Dave Weatherall, John Newsom. We had more influence as reserves because he forced the first team to perform better,
to stay on. Yeah,
because they knew that we were after.
If they dropped even one game or got injured, you're there to fill in and do a job.
Newcastle, God rest his soul, came as a replacement for Gordon Strachan. And Gordon Strachan said, "Fuck you, I'm staying. I'm not going nowhere."
Yep.
And David Rocastle ended up playing in reserves with me, with Steve Hodge.
Yep.
With John Pearson. With Scotty Sellers. That's the player I remember. I couldn't remember his name. And Gary Kelly came. He was a right winger and he was fast. But Howard Wilkinson saw him as a right back, like he did with me at Sheffield Wednesday. It was the left back. Best thing that he ever did to Gary Kelly, because he became such another icon for Leeds United.
Yep.
He didn't want to change David Batty. He wanted David Batty to stay the same person. Yep. And even though Bats used to get booked and he had a reputation, Bats could play.
Yeah.
Bats could play. If he could have scored goals, if he shot more, because he could shoot as well. Who knows? He might have got more goals. But David Batty and Gary McAllister, Gary Speed, Gordon Strachan, that midfield, never injured, never suspended. Again, and you don't change your team once you're playing and you're successful. Keep that same team. Chrissy Fairclough, Chris White, Mel Sterling, Tony DeRigo, Lee Chapman would play up front with Eric occasionally, with Carl Shutt, with Bobby Davison. With John Pearson, but Lee Chapman was the heart of that, strikers role, and we did exactly what what Howard wanted us to do, was get crosses in the box, get shots on target, get free kicks, get corners, because if you've got one shot out of 10, you've got a chance of scoring.
Yeah,
and that's his mentality into how we played. Not everybody liked it. Eric certainly didn't like it. And him leaving Leeds United was, and people may say it was the right or the wrong decision. It was the right decision at the time because he didn't fit into Howard Wilkinson's style of play.
Yeah.
And in hindsight, you might say, well, you could have stayed another year and see. But I don't think Eric was enjoying it either because he wanted to play. He wanted to play. And I believe, when he went to Man United, I think many of us thought, well, maybe it's not going to happen for him there. But he didn't. He found his niche. He found his his footprint, and he went on to become a legend at United. He's still a legend at Leeds. He was a legend at Leeds first. They loved him, even though he
Yep.
didn't play that much. Even though he
Exactly.
didn't play that much, but they still loved him. I was fortunate. I used to train in the mornings with Eric. We used to do this weird little warm up routine where we used to do half volleys in an area 30 meters long by 10 meters wide.
Oh wow.
We'd cone it all off, and it was one touch. It was
Yep.
one touch, and if you could, and if you had to do two touch, you had to make the next pass had to be a half volley.
Oh,
And I used to be, obviously, Eric Cantona, his flair, his skills was different class, but we used to have competitive games,
yep.
before the rest came out. Before the
Yep.
rest came out.
You'd be doing those
Um,
extras.
yeah, we just did. That's how, I say I always I had a great left foot, and Gary McAllister used to drill a ball probably 20, 30, 40 meters, and it used to be about an inch off the floor.
Yeah.
You know, you look at that and you think, well, I can do that. And Eric Cantona used to do these volleys or half volleys, one touch, and it'd go boof, straight.
Yep.
7 out of 10 would go straight, straight at you, and it will help you on your touch. It helped you on your quickness of feet. It helped you, become a better player.
Yep.
And like I say, because I spent those 3 years playing with the technical ability of black players in South Africa, I'd watched, I'd learned, and I learned tricks. I'd learned, I got quicker, and and I brought it into to Ellen Road. Unfortunately, the competition was Tony DeRigo, Jim Beglin,
Yep.
Gary Speed, Steve
Yep.
Hodge, England
Yeah.
international. Tony
Yep.
DeRigo, England
England
international.
international.
Gary Speed to become a Welsh international. Gordon Strachan, Scottish international, Man United legend, Leeds United hero. It was competition. But I tell you what, without us in the background, it wouldn't have worked, because
I
we
agree.
were the ones that
Kept them on their
after.
toes to stay at their best.
Well, and I became the captain of the reserve team.
Yep.
The captain of the reserve team. John Lukic came, Mervyn Day went in goal. Peter Haddock was centre back, John McClellan was centre back. I was left back, left midfield, centre midfield, right back, right midfield. I played everywhere, and
You
I
were
was
everywhere.
captain.
Yep. Yep.
David Rocastle, Steve Hodge, I was captain.
Yep.
And it, again, people think that reserve league was absolutely immense, because you were playing against Liverpool, Man United at Old Trafford, at Anfield. You were playing against Everton. You were playing against top players.
Yep.
So it wasn't like, oh, it's just as we call them, Joeys.
Ah.
There was reserve first team players that couldn't get in the first team, coming back from injury, coming back from suspension, couldn't get in the team, as I couldn't.
But just as much so
And
deserved their spot there.
yeah, that's what it were. It was like Simon Grayson, centre midfielder, became a right back.
Yep.
I would put him at right back, became a right back, couldn't get in the team because of Mel Sterling.
Yeah.
Mel
And
Sterling
then Gary
got
Kelly.
injured. And then Gary Kelly came. Gary Kelly then, obviously, because Mel had a bad injury, he took over. So Simon Grayson, we had such a camaraderie. We'd go out as a group together. There was not first team, second team, first team reserves. We used to go out together after a win on a Saturday. We were all in La Comida, an
That's
amazing
awesome.
Italian restaurant that's no longer there. We would be invited there. We'd have dinner together.
Yep.
Those that didn't go clubbing would go home. Those who went to Mr. Craig's went to Mr. Craig's. And Brendan Ormsby, who's now got dementia and not Parkinson's. He's got something else, epilepsy. He's in a care home. We all went together. We all mixed together. And if you go onto YouTube and you type in "Do you want to win?" deleted scenes. I've just remembered that. If you go into "Do you want to win?" deleted scenes, there's an actual story there that Howard told about me.
Ooh. Well, I'll do is after this recording is done, I'll download that and pop it at the start of the episodes for people to see and listen as like a pre
It's exactly
bit.
exactly what I told you in about 90 seconds.
Yep.
But it didn't make the final cut of the film.
Okay.
But again, why did I get invited to do that? I did something to Leeds United in those 4 years.
Yep.
And when they made the film, I wouldn't have imagined me being on it. I
Yeah.
wouldn't have imagined me being asked to participate in it. But me and Mel Sterling, they invited me to come with Mel Sterling, and I said a lot of people don't know what was going on in the background, but I had to do the warm up with Mervyn Day and John Lukic. We didn't have a
Wow.
goalkeeper coach. We didn't have a
No.
goalkeeper training. So every game, I would go and get dressed, go and warm the goalkeepers up
Yep.
because I made them work, because my ratio of hitting the target was better than anybody else. My left
Yep.
foot at crossing the balls was better than anybody else. Down at Bournemouth when they got promoted, when Lee Chapman got us promoted, I'm in the dressing room with my kid. I actually did the warm up with Mervyn Day.
Yep.
Had I not done that warm up, Mervyn Day wouldn't have made the saves that he did make them that day, because I was good at what I was asked. I was good at what I was asked to do for him,
Yep.
because he didn't have that. He didn't have that. We didn't have a goalkeeper coach as they've got now.
Yep.
So I did that, and I was only too happy to do that because I felt important. I felt a part of that
It
day.
made you a better player with your strike rates and whatnot, and it made him a better goalkeeper as well.
People think, oh well, what I did it. That was something that I was asked to do, and I'd do it. I'd do it
Yep.
today if I was off. If they asked me to do it today, I'd do it today. My left foot's still the same. I can still ping it. I can still cross it, and I can still hit the target.
That also
So
perfectly segues into after we're done with this topic was going to be about you're now coaching these days and have been coaching for a while. How's that transition sort of been for you, going from being a player, then 10 years sort of retired from playing, and then going into coaching?
But when I went to South Africa, I was 18,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing I did was take my prelim badge.
Yep.
And in South Africa, we had a coach there, our assistant coach, what could deliver a preliminary course. And at 18, I took that preliminary course, and
So you're
I took over.
already preparing for life after football to an extent.
I wanted to be a coach. I love what Howard Wilkins' management style. I love his assertiveness of getting the best out of his players.
Yep.
And I thought, and that became something that I thought, well, I can put that into my career. That I wanted to be a footballer for life, and then the next
Yep.
step when I be a coach. And I passed the prelim, and we had a team of juniors. It was called Arcadia Colts, played in a league,
Mm-hmm.
which is not dissimilar to the Central League or the Northern Premier League
Yep.
when you're an apprentice. And 4 players I had was at the time was Paul Matthews, Mark Fish, Lucas Khedebe, and Phil
Mm-hmm.
Masinga.
Yeah. Wow.
And I was their coach. And
Wow.
it was that was the start of the journey. And once I came back, I went obviously 4 years at Reading. I had 2 loan spells, one at Donny, one at Blackpool. Both wanted to sign me. Howard refused me to go to Donny. He thought I was way too better
Too
than
good for them.
going
Yep.
to Donny. Blackpool wanted to sign me after 3 months, but unfortunately, I think my agent became a bit greedy,
Yeah. Okay.
and they
Yep.
couldn't really afford the transfer fee and my salary, which like I say it wasn't that much. But Blackpool were in League 3 at the time,
So it would have been a lot for them. Yeah.
Division 3 at the time. When I went to Reading, the best advice I got, Gordon Strachan pulled me one day and he said, "Dylan, you're too good to be here as a squad player. You need to go and play. You
Mm.
need to go out there and play." Because I would have stayed at Leeds. I would didn't want me to leave. I would offered me another contract, another 2 years. I could have stayed,
Mm-hmm.
but Gordon pulled me one day and said, "Look, you need to go play." And
Yep.
and I went, and
You
Huddersfield
played over
came in.
100 games at Reading.
Well, Huddersfield came in for me. I'd agreed to sign for Huddersfield, and Gordon phoned me up and said, "Listen, go and speak to Mark McGee down at
So
Reading."
given the game just happened over the weekend, as in the other day, I'm glad you didn't sign for Huddersfield.
So I went down to Reading. I'd actually shook on the deal with the then coach Ian Ross at Huddersfield, and I phoned Billy Eyre, who was my former coach at Blackpool, and I asked him, Reading or Huddersfield? Huddersfield would have been easier because I didn't have to move home.
Yeah, it was a lot closer.
And Billy said, sign for Reading. They'll get promoted this year, sign for Reading. And I signed for Reading. First game of the season, Huddersfield Town away. We won 3-0. We won 3-0.
Did you set up any of them or score any of them?
I set up the first one.
Yep.
And I had 3 great years at Reading. Injury forced me out of Reading. I had a really serious injury. I then went on trial at Rotherham, at Doncaster, and I went to...
Quite a journeyman, honestly, after Reading, weren't you?
Oh, I've been everywhere, just to get myself... I was told I wasn't going to play again because I did the splits and I ruptured my hamstring. I'd ripped my whole hamstring off my leg. And I was told that I would never play again. But again, nobody tells me I'm going to play again. Nobody tells me I'm not good enough. Nobody's going to tell me I can't do this, I can't do that. So I'll prove them wrong. And it took me 18 months of hard work. And I got a phone call from a police sergeant in Rotherham that knew the assistant manager at Kilmarnock that were looking for a left back. I went up on the Monday, played a friendly against Hibs on the Tuesday, made my debut at Dundee United on the Saturday, and signed a 2-year contract. We won the Scottish Cup 6 years later.
Wow.
And
that's really...
I stayed at Kilmarnock for 4 years. Again, a serious groin injury.
Hamstring or just groin in general?
It was my groin was... I've had 5 hernias, 4 groin releases, and I just couldn't play anymore. And the last year of my contract, I never played a game of football. I just couldn't get... I just couldn't get rid of this pain. It was a nasty pain. When somebody pinches you really hard.
Yeah, and it burns bad from that. Yeah,
every single minute of the day, and I just couldn't get rid of it. Anyway, I went after I left Kilmarnock. A doctor called me and said, "You got to go and see a guy called Mr. Schindler at Batley Hospital." No, Mr. Shoulders. At Batley Hospital. I went to Batley Hospital. He put a big needle down my belly button into my pubic bone and zapped me and cured me. So I'd wasted a year until somebody told me to go see Mr. Shoulders, and he cured me like that. And touch wood, I've never had one groin problem ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So I would drive from Scotland to Harrogate on a Tuesday and a Saturday to play for Harrogate Town. I would fly from Glasgow to London Heathrow, play a game for Slough Town, and fly back that night. Fly down at 6 o'clock in the morning and fly back at 8 o'clock at night. I signed for Greenock Morton for 6 months. I signed for Hamilton Accies for a year. And then I decided in 2001 to take my UEFA A licence. I'd passed my B. I'd done all the modules to get to the A license, and my coaching partner was you might know him. He's a Portuguese. I think he's a Portuguese coach. It was Jose Mourinho that was on the same course.
Wow.
And we became really, really good friends for 2 weeks on that coaching course. And nobody knew who we were. Nobody knew we were Jose Mourinho at the time. It was just Bobby Robson's so-called interpreter. And the funny thing is, every night we used to go for a drink, and we went to this. I think it was called Smith's in Largs, and they had an internet machine. We had put a quid in, and you can use internet, and Jose put a quid in, and he went, "Look, there's me and Bobby Robson at Barcelona." And we were like, and so we got on really, really well. Unfortunately, I didn't pass. I don't know if Jose passed, but I didn't pass. I failed, and I failed because I took it too early. I thought I could do it. The transition from being a footballer to being a coach is not easy. You think it is.
It wouldn't be.
You think you know everything, and I failed it. And I went to America from 2002 to 2005. And when I came back in 2005, I took my UEFA, I resat my UEFA A license, and I passed in
Well,
2005. And then I made the choice in 2009 to go to South Africa. I got offered the opportunity to be an assistant coach, and I went there in 2009. I left in 2011 to go to Vietnam, where I became a coach, assistant coach, and academy director for 2 years, and then I got my first head coach's job in 2014, and that's when it started.
yeah,
My
wow.
coach as a head coach. Stayed there
That's
for a year. We won the Vietnamese National Cup, which is the FA Cup in Vietnam.
yep.
I think, unless I'm mistaken, I still am the only English person to win a major trophy in Southeast Asia.
Oh wow.
Robbie Fowler didn't do it at the time. Peter Reid didn't do it at the time. Bobby Robson didn't do it at the time.
You've probably
And
got
then,
competition there this year, only currently because former Leeds player Mark Jackson is currently
yeah,
coaching the Mariners, my local
yeah,
team where I live, in
yeah.
in the AFC Cup at the moment. He
Well,
may become the
I had
second. Hey, I hope because I'm
me
a
and
Mariners fan.
Andy Bennell played at Reading together, and I
I
love
know Andy
Bernie.
Bennell. Yeah,
And when he appointed Jacko, I said, I messaged him. I says, where was my phone call? Where was my interview? I said, what the fuck, Bernie?
yeah.
And he went, oh, Dill. Again, but he's doing. Jacko's doing great.
He's
Jacko's
doing
doing great.
well. There's now 5 former Leeds players at the team, whether it's playing or staff. And as a Leeds tragic myself, and being raised on the Central Coast as a Mariners fan, it's the
Yeah,
best of both worlds for me.
yeah. And so, like I say, it was. I should have stayed in Vietnam, but
Hmm.
I kind of wanted to come back to England and get into
Okay.
the professional side of the game in England. And Mickey Whitlow, who was academy manager at Burton,
Yep.
I was his best man at his wedding. I still speak to him every other week. He offered me the under 18s job at Burton, so I went to
Wow.
Burton. I did the under 18s for 7 months. Promoted 5 players from the youth team into professionals
Hmm.
with Jimmy Floyd, working with Jimmy Floyd and David Oldfield. And then I got offered a job in Tanzania as
Okay.
head coach with one of the biggest teams in Africa called Simba.
Mhm.
I went there for 8 months. It didn't work out. Politics in football in Africa is very rife. Corruption's very rife. Um, you know, Buying and selling games is something that I could not deal with.
Yeah.
You
No.
know, and um, I left. I left. It was a mutual decision to leave. I
Hmm.
came back and I went. I got offered a under 18s job at Chesterfield,
Hmm.
where I did for a year, and then I got offered a job in Kenya again for a team called Gor Mahia, which was the biggest team in Kenya.
Hmm.
Um, I won back-to-back championships. I won 4 cups. I won an East Africa Challenge game that gave us the opportunity to play Everton.
Hmm.
My first game in Tanzania for Gor Mahia was against Everton. We
Oh,
then
wow.
replayed the game 2 years later at Goodison Park. Because
Wow.
we'd won in a tournament between us, Tanzania, and Uganda.
Yep.
We'd won the tournament, so we got invited to Goodison Park, and then I got offered a job back in South Africa as head coach,
Oh, wow.
and my first club was Black Leopards, bottom of the league, relegation certainties, 15 games left. We've survived. I
Mhm.
then left because my mum was dying, came back
Oh,
home,
yeah.
um, and the only time I've ever thought of anybody else apart from my football was that,
Hmm.
and it's the best decision I ever made. I then got offered a contract at a team called Barocca, bottom of the
Hmm.
league, 12 games left. We survived. The next year, I got offered a job at TTM, Chikuma Cha Madzivandila.
Oh, that's
They
a
had
name.
bottom of the league. Not only did we survive, we won the South African equivalent of the FA Cup.
Oh, wow.
The next year, I joined Swallows. Swallows were bottom of the league. I had 14 games to get them to survive. We made the playoffs, relegation playoffs. We didn't get relegated, but we made the playoffs. We
So
survived.
survived. Yep, survived.
And then I left Swallows and joined a team called Marumo Gallants, which was my former team, TTM. They bought they changed names. I got 10 games left. I needed to get 29 points. I got 28 points last game of the season. Unfortunately, I can't get a job in England. I don't know why, but it's just not happening at the moment. I left in the summer to come back to England to try and get back into the game, but it's very, very difficult. But I'm fed up of people saying, what a CV, what a career you've had, what a great achievements you've done in Asia and Africa. It counts for nothing because I can't get my foot on that roundabout, you know, and on that merry-go-round, I can't get my foot on it. And no matter how hard I try, and again, it'll come back again. I'm never going to give up. I still want to be the coach of Man United, Leeds United, Liverpool, Arsenal, Celtic, Rangers, Bayern Munich, Barcelona. I still want to do that. And nobody's going to tell me I won't get there.
No, you will. Absolutely.
It might take a wee while. It might take a lifetime. But nobody's going to tell me I'm not good enough to do that. And
exactly,
that's what I've been. How I've brought my life up. No regrets. I've enjoyed every single minute of my football career, of my football life. I've done things that not many people would be able to do, but I've done it on my own. I've done it
off your own hard work,
without asking, for an opportunity. I've done it. I phoned Howard Wilkinson up every time I came home. Gaffer, can I come and train and keep myself fit? Yes, I'm coming in. So I think
if anything, you've created your own luck. You've created your own opportunities.
I could phone Gordon Strachan and say, Gordon, can you give me a job, or can you put me in a word? I'm working for Phil Parkinson at the moment at Wrexham, doing some scouting. I could say to Parky, could you do this? I've never done that. I've never phoned Howard and asked him to help me. I've never phoned Gary McAllister, asked him to help me. I've never phoned Chris Kamara. I've never phoned anybody. I've wanted to do it my own, and I'm
Which
glad
is
I have
absolutely testament. Absolutely. Now that actually comes up with a great final question. I do actually have some quick fire questions, 5 questions first, and then a final question. But that final question is honestly so perfect for that. But right now we'll do the quick fire ones. Just very quick fire for everyone to get to know Dylan Kerr the person, not Dylan Kerr the footballer or the coach. First of all, question is Apple or Android?
Android. I'm a BlackBerry user. I've still got my BlackBerry.
Okay. Yep. What is your favorite movie of all time?
I'll tell you, nobody's going to remember this. There's 2. Obviously, Blazing Saddles. Everybody.
Great film. Funny. Yep. Yeah. So good.
But there's a film. It's called "It's a Mad, 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 Mad World."
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it.
Watch it. It is hilarious, and the stars that are in that film.
Okay.
And the ending is just brilliant. The last bit is brilliant.
I'll make sure I watch it either tomorrow or the day after, and I'll send you a message with my thoughts on it.
Your opinion.
Next question. How do you like your steak?
Medium rare and pink in the middle.
Absolutely. What's your beer of choice or drink of choice if you don't drink beer?
Well, my drink, I like Lagavulin whiskey because I used to work in Islay. I used to do some coaching in Islay, so I got introduced to the peaty whiskey distilleries of Islay. But I used to drink Guinness, but I've got hemochromatosis, so I've got too much iron in my blood. So
I'm not anemia, which is not enough.
So I'm not allowed to drink that. And I just drink lager. I just drink beer.
Fair. Yep, no, that's fair. And my final quick fire question: flip flops or Crocs?
Oh, flip flops! I hate Crocs. There's a pair looking at me right now. I can't stand them. And the yellow Crocs. They're not mine. But yeah, flip flops.
That's fair enough. And my final question, that's not to do with the quickfire, which is kind of perfect to wrap all this up, is what's next for Dylan Kerr?
Currently, I'm scouting for Wrexham up in the
Hmm.
north of England. I'm working with Glyn Snodding. He's set up his own soccer schools. It's called Snodding Soccer Schools.
Okay.
He just started in January, so we're doing our Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday in Doncaster and in Rotherham.
Hmm.
Uh, we're looking at extending it to the Easter festivals to do Easter festivals.
Yep.
So we're looking at. We're currently trying to set up that. I'm doing some. I did some commentary work for Reading,
Hmm.
and also I'm doing a bit of. I wouldn't say scouting, but I'm doing a bit of work for Neil Collins at Barnsley.
Oh wow. So you've literally got all of your fingers in the pies, sort of thing, a bit of everything.
I've been busy while I try and get myself.
Back
I've
into
been offered.
coaching in England.
I've got a job in America.
Okay.
I'm going to be director of coaching for an academy in Long Island,
Hmm.
but I'm waiting for a visa to
Okay. Yeah.
grant a work permit. So that should be, they say, approximately 6 months.
Yep.
Um, so I'm hoping the job will still be available
Yep.
because obviously my um, visa application takes a lot longer
Yeah.
to process. So I've been issued it in America and I've been issued it in London at the US Embassy. I
Hmm.
just need it stamped in my passport. So
Gotcha. Yeah.
million, I'm probably 7,985,000 person on their computer.
Yep.
So as soon as they get the back to it and they get that visa, then. But if an opportunity comes here, then I'm
Beforehand. Yep.
gonna. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Honestly, that about wraps it up. So, on behalf of myself, obviously, I want to thank you very much for your time talking to me about your, honestly, no pun intended because of the podcast, but your literal life in sport. Your journey from, academy days and being told by a bloke saying, "Oh, you're not going to make it anywhere," to slipping that contract under his door, walking away, and now, illustrious career as a coach. Quite storied at Leeds and Reading and other clubs as well. Honestly, thank you so very much for your time, and it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast.
No, but listen, I appreciate it. I mean, when you sent me that message, I thought, wow, again, it's just I'm not I'm not like one of these big players as they're called, but
To me, you are.
I, I'm it's a story that I mean we could sit here for another 4 hours.
Oh, we could.
There's so
Absolutely.
many other things to discuss about
You know what?
football and
I may even get you on again later on down in the year,
yeah,
if you like.
yeah. I mean how football's changed, our players' attitudes and players' dimensions have changed.
How there
Our
used to
young
be,
players.
how there used to be only a coach and an assistant, and now there's a coach and a coach for every position. Yep.
Exactly, and you've got analysis coming out of your ears. I mean,
Yep.
yesterday, I was watching. Obviously, I was watching the Manchester derby yesterday, and the halftime stats came up, and it said, "Yeah, Man City have had 78% and football, and they've had all the shots." And the score said, "Man City nil, Man United one." I says, "You can
Yep.
put all the stats." You can put all the stats in the world, and the only stat that matters is the scoreline.
That's exactly it. A team can be the best team on paper, but everything changes on game day. Everything changes as
Well,
soon as that first kickoff. It changes.
I was at Ellen Road for the Leicester game, and
Yep.
Leicester should have
Oh,
battered
what a
Leeds.
game! Oh,
Leicester should
the,
have battered Leeds,
oh,
and
honestly,
and
I
I'm
was watching that game, and Leeds, if I'm being honest, were lucky to not be down 3-0 by the 70th minute.
yeah,
Lucky,
yeah,
and yet we
and
won 3-1.
I'm sat with. I'm a fan. I don't go hospitality. I don't go as an
Yep.
ex Leeds player. I go with my friends,
Yep.
and all around us, I kept saying, "We got to shoot. We got to shoot. We got to. We're not shooting. We want to pass. We want to have a shot." And and when Archie Gray put off the left winger for Leicester just before they scored the first goal.
Yep.
He didn't make a tackle. He did enough. He did enough to put him off because he was
Yep.
through on goal. He wasn't
Yep.
going to catch him, but he did enough. He was breathing down his neck, and I think the guy panicked and he sclaffed his shot.
Yep.
And then he made the substitutions. change. And I'm saying to the guys around me, he needs to take Archie into midfield or take him off.
Yep.
He didn't. He put him at left back. And then I said to the guys, if we don't shoot, we're never going to score.
Yeah.
First goal, he shoots.
Yep.
Doesn't pass.
Now, I do actually have a question about that in particular, and we'll wrap it up after that, and I'll get you on later in the year, of course. So my question about that game in particular. So Dan James kicks a goal, deflects off Bamford, but they give the goal to Bamford. But earlier in that game, Archie Gray kicked it, and it deflected off two Leicester players. It wasn't an own goal. Can you try and explain to me, because obviously I'm only a fan watching in, how the Archie Gray goal wasn't classified as an own goal with two deflections from Leicester, but the goal that was kicked by Dan James was a goal by Bamford, even though it deflected off him?
I think it's the rules now in football have all changed.
Okay.
So
okay,
I mean, if you're shooting and it's my. I think my take on it, if you shoot at a goal and it's going wide and it's deflected in, that's an own goal. But if your shot is at target and it gets deflected in, it's your goal.
Yeah, that's fair. Exactly. And it deflected off two Leicester City players. Not just one, but two, and it wasn't an own goal. But yet Dan James's shot deflects off Bamford, and it's a Bamford goal, not a Dan James goal.
It's come off Bamford, so it's Bamford's,
Okay. You know what? I'll stipulate to that. I'll agree to that one.
Now it might have come off his toe. Nose. It might have come off his wherever it's come off. It's hit Bamford. It's Bamford's goal.
Okay, I'll agree to that one, but I don't know why that Archie Gray wasn't a known goal.
The atmosphere after that final whistle. Leeds fans are the best in the world.
I saw footage from 4 miles away. You could still hear everyone chanting, marching on together.
Seen the same tweet. I was in that big stand. I was in the East stand. Yeah,
I think so.
I was in the East stand. I was in the East stand with my pals, and when Kaiser Chiefs came on, we were up dancing.
I predict a riot
all around us.
Yeah,
it was brilliant. It was brilliant. And again,
I was watching it on Zoom in a group call with my mates.
Yeah, we had the same atmosphere when I was at Leeds United. That's how it worked.
And that's what's great is even when we were down in League One, we still had that atmosphere.
Exactly. That's why the Leeds fans are the best in the world.
Leeds are the biggest fan base. You could say Man United. No, Leeds are they may not be the biggest possibly, but they are the best fan base in the world.
You can go across the pub to the Peacock now, and you can see every grown-up there with his son. Like my dad took me. Yep. I know a lot of clubs have got that, but I don't think they've got that same,
energy.
Same, stuff that they have at Leeds. My dad.
We're different. We are different.
It's. But I say, it keeps the momentum. Unfortunately, they couldn't get 3 points on, but it's in their hands now. Forget everybody else. Leicester were untouchable 4 weeks ago. Now look at us. They can't.
Exactly.
Now they can't win again. So it's all down to Leeds. It's what that manager and his backroom staff can go into training and say, right, this is where we prepare Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday we're ready. Saturday we're going to play the game and get the 3 points and get promoted.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think that's a perfect time to end the recording. Thank you very much for your time, and I'll get you on at the end of the season sort of thing. We can do a Leeds sort of recap if you like.
Brilliant. Listen, again, thank you very, very much. It's I say it's a story. It's a story of a journey.
And it's worthy of being heard.
Any regrets? No. Anything I've done which I think I could have done any better? Of course, you can always do better. But the journey I've had it's been great. I've worked with so many talented players, so many talented people. The advice I've been given has always been positive, and it's been a pleasure to be part of Leeds United's history.
Oh, absolutely. And as a fan of the team, thank you so much. And thank you for not just coming on the podcast, but your contributions towards Leeds. Absolutely. Quick question. I'll